Hello, and welcome to another One Lion of Code. I am One Lion, and we just got rated by the one, the only, the Simple Game Dev. If you guys do not know Simple Game Dev, definitely check out his game at minimum, Artificial, on Steam, as well as the Artificial Prologue. Are we still calling it that? You can see a link there. And if you click on that or you navigate to it, and you can read it and stuff. Where's my... Oh, it's on the left side. Then you will see the game. It is fantastic. Yeah, absolutely. Simple. Thank you so much for stopping by. Get some good rest. Enjoy. I caught most of your stream. I heard half of it. It's Artificial, the prequel now. I will do my best to remember. It's complicated, but yeah. So Artificial, the prequel will be a nice taster that has somewhat similar game mechanics to the actual game. You're actually playing as an alien life form, and you'll have a nice taste of the world, albeit with an alien lens. So you'll have a different way of seeing color and perceiving danger and slightly different mechanics, but for the most part, you'll know what the actual game is going to be like. You'll just be taller and, you know, have human abilities. So anyway, good times. He does have a demo of Artificial up as well. So Dukasoft's name is in the game. Mine is right underneath Dukasoft's name, or was. I don't know if it still is. Really good times. But yeah, and then of course check out his stream. So I want to show a clip, but I want to get to the desktop because I don't know if I have the shout out clips in this scene. We'll get to that shortly, but just so that I can intro everything, today is Friday, which is Community Day, and on our channel that means that I open up our Discord voice channel for any verbal conversations. I did see some chatter in Discord surrounding auth and stuff, so we may talk about that depending on, you know, whoever shows up and whoever wants to come in. So I have hopped into Discord. I'm going to push the start virtual camera so that if you do hop into the Discord voice channel, you will be able to stop the stream and see the camera. Okay, so Mojo's, it's not auth. Oh, I thought it was not, or I thought it was auth, but not auth as in you're not going to talk about it. Okay, that's fine. There is no expectation. The invite is there, but I understand if you're afraid about it. I'll talk about something that I was going through recently. And the reason that you see my head turning so far over is because I still have not had this monitor fixed, and it's still sitting there because I prefer having my main screen here. Yeah. Anyway. So the display that I'm using is way over there. It's really hard to rearrange my desk to get that thing to fit where this one is currently. So I'm not going to do it. Yeah, anyway, to the main scene. Okay, so as promised, here is a glimpse of Simple Game Dev's stream. And hopefully we'll be able to see something cool from his actual game development.
What's gonna happen? What's gonna happen?
Yeah. Was that... Oh man, he's not here yet. But, no! That was when he was first developing that cutscene thing. It's funny. On my my chat, I'm showing it as a raider from Simple Game Dev. I love that. But anyway, he's got some great clips. If nothing else, definitely check out his clips. There's this one where he was experimenting with the explodable oxygen canister thing. Oh, it is lovely. It is beautiful. Yeah, it's very cool. You'll actually see that hand or limb or tentacle thing pushing down if you go to the Steam page and watch the demo. But it's beautiful. It's made in Unity. He did some amazing things with just Unity. It's just, I can't say enough about it. It looks like it's going to be really fun. going to be awesome. I did try the demo and I loved it. Looking forward to the full game whenever it comes out. Anyway, there's that. I do have one admission to make, one admonition of myself. So yesterday or Wednesday, we finished off with having most of the cards set up. And so what I ended up doing is just finishing it off. I turned them into components and then combined the components into variants and then organized them a little bit better so that we can see them laid out. They obviously need more work. So when we get back to doing more UI design stuff, then we can continue making the base card design better. And so like right now, one thing that I might want are some variants as far as hover level. So typically in something like material design, you have a hover level that tells you how far off the page, which is somewhat proportionate to the amount of shadow the card gives. So we'll want to add stuff like that. Right now it just has this one kind of hazy, shadowy thing, which by the way needs to change on all of these. So this drop shadow here. Aha. Yeah, I need to do that. And actually I should just be able to do that. Ooh. Hey, wait a minute. Why aren't you variants for these? If I drag it in, do they become variants? Okay, good. That was scary for a second. Okay, anyway, your shadow, let's just go ahead and update this. Let's just make it some dark-ish gray. Oops. Great. I accidentally zoomed on the Figma page itself. How did I manage that? Go again. Show me it again. I have no idea how I ended up zooming. There. Reset. Okay. On the actual page. I meant to zoom in on these. Okay, so there you go. Now they have a slight shadow. Good. Ooh. That was scary. Anyway, so that's the design work that we've been doing in our recent streams. We have been doing a lot of app redesign, so working in a design tool. In this case, we're using Figma to overhaul the UI, and I've started with creating base components for all of the web elements. And once we're done with that, we're gonna create this landing page using the components we come up with, except we're going to make it better. We're going to make it cool. So there's that. Okay, so the thing that I've been playing around with for my work product that's got me stumped, the reason that I said I completely understand, Mojo, about your brain being fried and not really wanting to talk about the thing, I've been working with localizations for calendars, which is great and fun. So in my work product, in the app that I work on, there is a screen that we have two different screens that show a date. The first screen, we'll call this the first screen because this is your left. The first screen shows the date in a long date format where it is month, day, year, like the spelled out month, day, comma, space, year. But of course, in some countries, that is day, space, full month name, space, year. In some countries, that is day, symbol, month, symbol, year, symbol. So that needed to be updated to display in the appropriate format based off of localization. Then on the other page, we have short date, which is by default month, day, year, year, with slashes in between those. But in some countries, that is day, month, year. And furthermore, this is the hard one. Arabic Eastern numerals. when you are displaying for Arabic, for Eastern Arabic countries such as Saudi Arabia, we need to display the numeric symbol in that language, in that character set, aka Mashriki, which I didn't know that that's what it's called until just now. So we have one Arabic language selection option, and then that gives us the language code AR. So we can't tell the difference between AR SA versus AR what? I can't remember what the other one is. AR-15 rifle. Yep, that's exactly what I'm looking for. Anyway, some other 11/03 2023 2023 2020 year. No, it's month, day, year. So 11/11/11/03/03/2023 2023. Anyway, yes. But so we can't tell the difference between the regional settings. November 3rd. There you go. And because of that, so like when we choose the language code and we set the threading.current thread or thread.current thread.culture current culture to the culture based off of the language code, we only use the 2-letter language code. We don't use locale-region. And so that makes it really hard to determine, are we supposed to display the numbers using the Arabic Eastern numerals or Arabic Western Arabic numerals, or just Western digits? And then do other languages have this issue? So I don't know the answer to all of those, so that I have questions out. I'm trying to say too many things at the same time. I asked this question as soon as we had the first issue. So the very original first issue is that the date used in the short time display was using the Islamic calendar when on Arabic computers. And then the long date that was being displayed was using the Gregorian calendar. And so they said, make them match. And I asked, okay, which one should it match? Should it match whatever the computer says I'm using as my calendar, or should it always use Gregorian? And they said, use the computer. Or the third option was, of course, based off of the selected language. Do we want the calendar to update based off of the selected language? Because I can do that. I just get the language code, create a new culture, get the language calendar for that culture, and convert the date to that. Easy peasy. So they told me, use the computer's region settings. So if you have never seen that before, I'm going to use the control panel version of it because it's the easiest one to see. It looks like this. And so if you come here and you select, for example, Arabic, Saudi Arabia, then you can see the Eastern Arabic numerals. So this reads, and it's so, it's an interesting thing to see. So this will read from right to left. So this is the day, this is the month, and this is the year. But when you read the numbers themselves for each group, you'll read those left to right. And I didn't know these things. So these are things that I'm learning, and it's like, okay, that's cool. That's interesting. Am I actually displaying it that way? I don't know. I didn't know at the time, but I do now. And then of course this would be the day, which is today, 03, and then the month, which is this month, 11, I think. And then the year, the era, or I'm sorry, the year itself would be 44 or 45. That's what this one is. But anyway, this is what was happening in the app. So I would set the computer's region and language settings to Arabic, Saudi Arabia. And instead of the app displaying this as the short date, it would display this as the short date. Oops. This as the short date. And I don't know if, actually, you know what? I have a zoom. There we go. There. Wow, that doesn't work very well, does it? Okay. Oh my gosh. I can't. So it displays this as the date, which is using, again, Western characters. And actually, you can tell that these are Eastern characters because you still select from right to left. Not Eastern, but Arabic characters instead of, like US numbers. I don't know what to call them. Western symbols for our digits, because you can still select right to left. And then you can see that as it's trying to select this first one, it's starting at the 1 and then going to the 9. And then same here. So the OS knows that the context of the text that I pasted is right to left. It's fun. Good times, eh? So the next question was, are we okay with always displaying the Western digits? I mean, we're able to tell it to always use the system's region settings to determine the calendar. But when we display, do we have to replace the digits with the appropriate region's character set? And that's been my question. So I asked all of these questions. I put them in an organized way in an email. It was a long email, so I went back up to the very top and I said, bottom line up front, how do we display the date? And then I generalized it a little bit more. Do we use the character set for the selected language? Do we use the character set for the OS language? Or do we use do we always use whatever Visual Studio displays? Or not Visual Studio, but the project, So I asked that question. I asked all of the other questions as well in a more detailed way, because here are the efforts that it's going to take. Here's what I'm going to have to research. Right now, I already started writing the logic for needing to replace the digits with the language-specific digits. In either way, use the system selected language or specify a language code or specify a culture. Yay, polymorphism. And you will get back the display, the text display. But then if we do it for Arabic, do we do it for every other language? Because we support 36 languages. And I'm sure that there's more than just one language that has their own numeric systems. And anywhere that we display a number in the app, do we do it for those numbers as well? And so the thing, this is why I'm talking about this. Captain's log, stardate 41153.7. So I asked this question in an email to the stakeholders and CC'd my PM. That was a lot of acronyms. And this is after the meeting that we had to discuss this. And I said, here's my questions. And the answer was match windows. Whatever you see in that little dialog box, make it look like that. And I'm like, I don't think you understand the full ramifications of that, because I also asked, everywhere that we have a number now, are we going to display that number as that character set or what? So I made sure that all of the questions were there. And then immediately after I sent the email, as is probably the case 80% of the time in a lot of the different jobs and stuff out there, we go. My PM called me immediately without reading the email, not even reading the bluff, not even reading the first line of the email that said, hey, here's my general question. If you don't want to read the details about it, at least answer these questions. Pretty please. Short, sweet, to the point questions. And then I can ask follow-up questions if I need to. But he calls me. And so the reason he called me was so that he can share his screen and pretty much go through the exact same thought process that I did while researching this issue on my own, because it's a work item that's assigned to me. And he came to the same, yeah, so bluff is TLD. Oh, did I bold it? I bolded the word bluff, or the acronym, because I don't like calling it TLDR. I just don't. These are my auth meetings. Yeah, so I understand how you feel is the point of this whole story anyway. I sympathize and empathize. I both with you. So anyway, he calls me and I tell him, like, I was not as respectful as I typically like to be when he called. So he starts off the call with, so about that email that you sent, and oh, I feel so bad about this, but I'm admitting it so that I don't do it. So I was like, it was too long and you didn't read it. You couldn't be bothered because too many words. I know. Too much work for you. I get it. And I said it just like that. And I don't like doing that to people. But I did it to him because I was fed up. I'm like, just read the email and respond to that. But he suddenly twisted his reason, because of course he's going to reject the reason that I tell him that he's calling for. And his reason was because he wanted to go over his thoughts on it. And I'm like, okay, so you read the whole email in the 2 minutes before, or not even 2 minutes, in the 15 seconds after I sent it, before you called me? Awesome. And so he takes me through how to set up date time conversion from Gregorian calendar to the Islamic calendar. And I'm like, I have that implemented. Would you like to see my implementation? And so I show him my implementation, and I'm like, from the beginning of the call, the questions that I'm asking are, the date is converting correctly. We're using the region setting of the computer. Do we display the numbers using the character set for the language that the computer is set to, or the language that the app is showing? Or do we just always show it in, I want to call it Romaji, because in Japanese it's just called Romaji when you use English characters. But the Western numeric system, cardinal numbers, for example. And so he's like, well, let's go through making sure that we're setting the calendar. And so we convert the date to Gregorian like this. Here's all the research I found. There's a bug in the calendar. And I'm like, I didn't run into a bug. I was able to correctly convert the date and time. But we would need to change the character set in order to be able to see the numbers as, for example, Eastern Arabic. So I did that, and he's like, well, let's go through this and this and this. And then here's this thing, which is already pulled up. Like, I have all of the resources still pulled up in Edge on my screen. And I'm like, yeah, I saw that one. And I saw that one. And that's where I got the conversion from Gregorian calendar to any other calendar type. And then he finishes his little proof of concept, which is a new WPF application with a label that shows the current date time in English, and then the date time in whatever culture he wants to convert it to, because he figured out how to do that. And I'm like, oh, hey, that's cool. You figured that out. Awesome. If only I had an extension method that does exactly that. Oh, wait, I do. So anyway, so he shows me that and he's like, oh, and it's showing with English characters. And I'm like, yes, the numbers are showing as 1, 2. And then here's this reference that shows what even was that site? There was like numeric something or other.com that showed. Is it you? It might be this one. No, this is a quiz page. Anyway, that shows the numbers and what they look like in Arabic, in Eastern Arabic. And he's like, oh, so, and I'm going to read this directly from the email. I have to, because the problem has become, do we go out of our way to display numerals, or do we stick
There was
with
an old PS2 game
what we
that had a
have
forest
had?
with fireflies, frogs, dragons.
Hey, it's
You could go around the
IJG.
place like their hoverboard in this specific
Whoa, this
forest.
is
Give you the
old.
tingles in the balls. Oh fuck, man! I got seriously baited into saying all that. Holy fuck! This is a dust storm.
You look embarrassed.
That shit.
You looked embarrassed for a second there. You don't get embarrassed. That was awesome. Anyway, so yeah, he's asking the question that I asked 3-4 weeks ago. One of the very first things to consider when we're trying to format dates, numbers, everything. So yeah, he used up pretty much 2 hours of time that I could have been working on the other work items that I have, just so he can come to the same conclusions that I did. And that frustrated me. And I knew he was going to do it, and I should have expected it, and I should have been more patient and understanding, because I mean, I am still performing my duties. I could be doing a better job and getting stuff done, but I was working with a colleague and it was on a topic that was related to the work that we are currently doing. So I should not have gotten as annoyed by him as I did, is what I'm trying to say. Oh dear. Anyway, hi Irish John Games. There was a nice shout out for Irish John Games. If you guys have not seen, take a look at I don't think that I ever, yeah, I did. I updated Stream Elements. I updated Stream Elements, dang it. I know I did. But anyway, Irish John's publisher is Microprose, if you did not know by now. So he was doing development all on his own. Irish John Games, company, and everything, all on his own, putting together Rise of Piracy. But now, if you go to microprose.com, the very first thing you'll see, at least at the moment, at the time of this video, is his game, Rise of Piracy, newest Microprose published game, or going to be published soon. Looking beautiful as their main headliner, beautiful looking game. Oh, yes. If you haven't experienced one of his streams, it is more mature, but it's a great time. It is a fantastic time over on Irish John's stream. Different than the fantastic time we have on Bit Gamies, but equally as amazing. But yeah, it is amazing, awesome, beautiful. Definitely watch this trailer. I'm in a browser that doesn't currently have sound for you guys, so you'll just have to watch it yourself. I encourage you to do so. I think he kept saying that this trailer specifically was created by the folks at Microprose without much of his intervention. But if you do want to see trailers that he came up with, hop over to Steam. Wow, that's interesting. So the link for Steam takes you to a version that you have to sign in order to see. Is it because your game is rated mature? You have like a birthday check or something on it? Weird. Yeah. Anyway, if we use this link, then we should be able to go directly to the store page without needing to sign in. And if it opens in the browser for you and you're not signed in the browser, none of us are, as Irish John keeps reminding us, just click the Open in Steam button and it'll open in your local install of Steam. And then you can wishlist, you can check out his trailers right here, for example. Did you take down the other one? If ROP comes out before Stormgate, I'm never installing Stormgate. Nels was not happy. So yeah, Irish John has worked with members of his community. I don't really know how you met Mels, but she helped him with some of the assets, like some of the UI stuff, as well as, I'm assuming, your trailers. Oh, it was moved close to the end. Aha! But yeah, amazing looking, great game. Looking forward to it. I mean, check out these pictures. I need to make it bigger, but too lazy. And I was like, that music was so loud for me because you guys weren't able to hear. It comes out in 2022. It was so loud for me that I couldn't tell if the what are you called? Slipstream music was still going, but it is. Hashtag blame Mel's. So much love. So much love. Okay, so that was fun. That was an interesting situation for me. That was my story time. Again, today is Community Day, so if you are wanting to hop into voice channel to have a discussion about programming or other topics that are on topic for our channel, feel free to hop into any of the voice channels on Discord. I'll pull you into the stream room when you're ready. You'll be able to mute the stream or mute the tab for the stream or whatever you feel like doing, and use the camera and the audio directly from Discord so you can see real time my screen if you needed that. Otherwise, we'll just have a discussion there. It was totally my fault though. That's all right, you were ambitious, that's all. And ambition only gets you in trouble. What? That's not how it goes. Does it even go any particular way? I don't think it does. Other than that, so I had one more topic that was actually a topic. What was it? I'm watching so many videos lately and I need to choose one subject and no, that was a Mojo topic. It is something that we can go through though. So I did create a new .NET 8 application to see how they do auth in that. But yeah, Mojo is like, no. My tolerance level for that topic right now is a little low. So no, not his particular situation. But if we do want to look at how auth is implemented in .NET 8, we can definitely look at that. And when I say in .NET 8, I mean the new Blazor web app template in .NET 8. This opened in Visual Studio Community. I need Visual Studio 2022. The effects in the voice chat. Oh, Deflux. Are you ready to hop in, Deflux? The answer is we might not be looking at auth in .NET 8. I know I need to open the other one. Anyway, I'm pulling you into the room so you can mute the stream. And can we get a sound check when you are available to?
Check 1, 2.
Got you. One more.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Check, check, check.
There.
You just-
Equalized.
1 and 2. 1, 2, 1, 2.
How's it going, DJ? What's your DJ name again?
That's a great question because I refuse to have a DJ. So I come up with the most
Oh,
insulting
awesome.
name possible. A little bit like it's you know how you have like stripper names and you have DJ names, and the
Mhm,
reason you have those names is because it's like kind of like a profession of ill repute, and so it's like so that
Wait, DJing is a
obfuscate your
profession of ill repute? Really?
No, well that's what it well that's what when strippers have stripper names, that's
Oh,
because
yeah,
they don't
yeah,
want the customers finding out who they are, because it's really
Right.
they don't want that attention, obviously. And so when DJs give you a DJ name, it's kind of like I put it in the same category of like, why can't you just tell me your first and last name, please? Like, so in the DJ circle I'm in, and we consider ourselves entertainment professionals, and we do not have DJ names on the point of policy.
So what do you think of authors
Sorry,
with pen
there you go.
names?
Authors with pen names, so that's
Yeah.
when an author like has like a different name to their real name.
That they use
Yeah.
when they
So
pen a
so a lot of
book.
so a lot of like you more see that in journalism, right? Because often people are reporting things that they don't want returned back to them when a company, like a whistleblower, right? When a company is doing something they're not supposed to be doing or skirting some sort of rules or something, they were like, well, I want to share this with the world because I think people ought to know, but I don't want that I don't want my relationships to be burned in the process. So that's like, you know what I mean? That sort of thing. So that's not in the same category. Well, I guess it is in a repute. Oh, it kind of is, because you're almost, in a way, sometimes it's worthwhile, but a lot of times it's not worthwhile. And knowing when it's worthwhile is actually a really difficult thing, and that's nothing to do with programming. So I don't know how long you want to stay on that topic, but because that might derail. Like, I was actually tuning in. I was really interested in what you're about to say about .NET 8
Cool.
and
Yeah.
authentication.
We're gonna look through it for sure. But like one thing
because-
that I'm thinking about with pen names is to protect identity. In general, that's even what it means to have a profession of ill repute. They're protecting their identity. So some authors don't want to be known for their writing as who they
Right.
are. Even if it's like just a fantasy novel that doesn't have anything negative about it. Or
Yeah, and that's one of the things
ill-repute.
where I think, you know, if you could go to companies like X, or formerly Twitter, or you go to companies like Facebook and say, could you do a thing where everybody that has like a known identity gets to talk with one another, and then anyone that's anonymous that enters a room, we know that they're anonymous. Like, we know that they're not willing to share their identity with us, because when people don't have to share their identity, they can say all sorts of crazy things because there's no consequence. And then that's one of the important things, that like words have consequences, and if you try and obfuscate away that consequence, where you're actually kind of creating an environment that's not very nice. And obviously the other part of that is, like I pointed out earlier, when in certain cases of journalistic, action or activism, you might say, it's really important that the person sharing the information that's crucial stays unrevealed, because they're doing like a whistleblowing type thing, right? And they can obviously have ramifications for that.
Yes.
But there you go.
Agreed-ish. And I'll leave it at ish.
Good enough. Good. We'll leave it there. Yeah. So I literally was watching a thing about .NET 8 authentication, and it just so happened that at the time I had Discord open, and I saw Mojo's little question in there, and I was like, have you checked out .NET 8? Because maybe things are different there. I did have a little peruse over the article that he had linked. I guess he's integrated with a specific SSO. One thing, I don't know if it's like a business constraint that he's been given or something he's choosing, because I know, at least for me, Active Directory has been very easy for me to implement. Azure Active Directory with using Active Directory as the SSO, and so has B2C Active Directory, Azure Active Directory, been very easy to implement for me. So if there's like an authentication thing, it's like, well, maybe you're not picking the easiest methodology in the first place. Maybe that's why you're running into the issue.
Yeah, and I mean they're at the very beginning stages. It's like how do we even approach going from Entity Framework, whatever version, or if they're not even using Entity Framework, my bad, .NET Framework to .NET Core, and bring our authentication with us.
Oh, I see. So actually, I didn't read the full thing.
Yeah,
Then
so there's
they're
a
actually
migration
migrating an
process
old
there.
project. Okay.
There's a re-architecting the entire project itself, because right now it's a monolith and they want to go to microservices or at least some kind of service oriented. And then they also need to do auth. So they have a lot of massive things to discuss and act on.
Can I share 2 cents on that real quick?
Of course. I mean, he said that he
I was
doesn't
gonna
really
say-
want to talk too much about that one because he's tired of it. 2 hours a day, every day.
Oh, okay. Well, we don't have to. I won't ask him any questions. But I will say, when people and this is true, and I have a background in IT administration, and obviously I'm a software developer now by trade. But for me at least, it makes sense that when you do these sorts of transitions, what you want to do it in very clear and easy to manage stages. Otherwise, it becomes this like big melting pot of changes that sort of like is big minutiae and very expensive. So I would try and move everything the way it is with the same type of authentication and the same sort of standards and the same sort of calls from framework to core, and leave everything as is. And then once you're there, then talk about, well, now we can move to a newer form of authentication, or we can move to a newer, take out SOAP, put in this sort of business. But I would do that for me in 2 separate stages. I mean, I guess I'm talking from a perspective of I haven't done this a lot. 119 has done this a ton. So does that sound like a bad idea?
I've only done one authentication setup.
I know. I'm speaking solely
And
from
I'm
like a
using
manager, like in terms of getting stuff from like
yeah.
used to like Java or jQuery
Yeah,
or I forget exactly what it was to
But
framework.
again,
and
I
framework
wasn't working
before.
on a team when I did my migration,
Right?
My modernization. So I was making
But
all the decisions.
Yeah, but in terms of like the business law, well, not business law, but in terms of like planning and phases, and if you had to like write down what your thoughts were, would you write down it's in framework A, and then we're moving to framework B and a bunch of other changes, or would you do framework A to framework B exactly as is, and now we're going to migrate and upgrade?
Yeah,
right. Because they're 2 very separate things.
And we talked about that last Friday too, and we were.
I can kind of speak on that.
Yeah.
Oh, hello, Mojo.
I'm here. Yes.
Hey.
It was magical.
Essentially, it's not just like I don't know. I think it's 3 things at this point. It's a migration, a re-architecture, and there are different features, because this is to allow us to like build out new products that are going to use some of the same components. So I think the way Thindle put it was like it's not a like, don't call it a migration, call it a rewrite. And then our like cloud consultant basically said the same thing. So with we're not approaching this nothing's been planned yet. No, there's no timeline yet, unfortunately. But with the auth specifically, every time I would read up on it, I'd get confused when I'd hop into these meetings, thinking I was like, oh yeah, like I understand. And then what I hopped into the Discord about yesterday, I guess, was essentially it's apparent that none of us have this experience using an identity provider. So, and then there's another business requirement that currently of integrating our knowledge base, our customer portal, using HubSpot, just so like, they can search questions and stuff. So I was like, we can learn how to use an identity manager or identity provider, get this out within the next couple of weeks, and like now we know. And so like, 2 birds, 1 stone it, where we kind of have a better understanding of the identity provider, and like we get this marketing operations requirement out. But we are currently in framework, so everything would have to be done with framework, and we don't run anything through an identity provider, so I think would be difficult.
I mean, I will have to ask then, and
Yeah.
you can say, you know, it's just not what you want to do, but is there a categorical reason why you can't just move the code from framework to core, make the changes necessary to get that to work? If that means also like, so when I moved some of the stuff,
Yeah.
when I was doing a very similar thing, when I was moving a WinForms application to Blazor, I did something very similar where some of the stuff still remained in framework because you can run
Mhm.
framework and core on the same machine. There's nothing stopping you doing that. And then I moved. You know, I said, right, we're going to get this module. We're going to put it in the core. And then instead of calling back to the framework, I simply then did it in core. And then it's, you know, module by module, step by step, and then now everything's obviously in core. Is there any reason why you can't do that whilst changing nothing? Like the end users were, other than obviously switching from web forms to a browser, and obviously there was a change there in UI, but outside of the functionality, it looked very similar. The users were unaware of the actual change happening in the background, that we were working away migrating this code. For them, it's just that Monday worked the exact same day as Tuesday, even though Monday it was framework and Tuesday it was
Right.
core. Is there a reason why you can't do that? Because that seems to me like the obvious thing to do. You know, this whole like identity stuff. It's like
Right.
you could do that once you've moved everything to core and take your time. You know what I mean? It doesn't have to be one day we're using framework and the next day it's a brand new system with identity. Because that's what that, and Thinder was correct in saying you're not migrating anything. You're axing the old project and putting a brand new rewrite entirely in almost like you would do this if you were switching languages. Like imagine if you were
Right.
switching from, you know, I don't know, Java to C# or something like this.
.NET.
Well,
It's
yeah, exactly.
There's no reason we can't other than I've mentioned it and it's been not the way we've decided, I guess. Like I mean,
Yeah. Because
because
that would be
I
that's the only
consistently
legitimate
like
reason.
ask y'all these questions. I mean, I've been asking it for almost a year, I guess, at this point. And it's essentially just the decision maker thought it was too much data structure changes to just do the small incremental, to piecemeal it. I'm not experienced enough to say I agree or disagree. Well, I mean, I do
I'll
disagree,
just,
but like I'm not experienced enough to actually like
yeah,
stand by that.
I'll just share real quick, just for the sake of maybe you have a completely different structure, things are different, but we just very simply what we had is our framework program running completely independently, and then we had our .NET 6 program that was running completely independently. And then we simply had, and then we had in our project in our Visual Studio, we had a shared project with modules with with models with DTOs, and then we would simply share that between both projects and set up a socket connection and send stuff back and forth. And so we would go to a service that's running in the framework, and again Monday we would send a message over to the framework code says now run this action. It would do whatever and return whatever, and there'll be a little bit messaging back and forth, and it's kind of messy, but that's how it worked. And then on Tuesday, we came and said, now actually, we're going to get that method and now move that into the .NET Core side, and we're going to handle it entirely in .NET Core. And you can do that in piecemeal, or you could do it in massive chunks. So what ended up happening was there was a service that we couldn't migrate from framework to core. And so there's a teeny part of the code that's still in framework to this day, and I'm working with another team that has to do their refactor first before we could do our switch, and they're sort of dragging their feet, which is fair enough. They do a lot of other things too. So, but what that basically means is 99.99% of the code is now in core. 0.001% is still in framework, and that's going to be until they figure that out.
Right. Yesterday I was reading about, so there's like the upgrade assistant, but then there's another tool.
So can I shout out another streamer who just did this live on their stream?
Absolutely. Yeah.
You probably already know who I'm talking about. Setlex moved his bot that he uses to run his stream. So his stream is like a bot. He doesn't actually like stream his face. And so it's like a Unity project. And then on the back end, that used to be .NET Framework that was running like the actual like chat integration. So you could do like the commands and a bunch of other stuff. And he moved that from Framework to Core. That was a little bit more akin to you. So he wasn't like keeping both. He just went and got his in production code and then copied that over to Core and then figured out the bits that now won't work and then got those working, and and then from there he then went and started to think about dependency injection and all the sort of like the .NET 6y things you can do. So that was his method, and he didn't do the whole communication thing that I just that we did. So one of the things that the tool does is that I think it highlights to you areas of incompatibility. So everything and the Amazon and I've never used the tool in all my migrations, and it's like a good thing that tells you, but it's not going to do it for you. But everything that's written in framework in terms of C# code is valid C# code in core. It's just some minority, I would add, some of the
Libraries and methods.
framework code won't run. Go ahead. What's a good example? Because I don't know.
Just
What's your blob
bitmaps.
storage?
Blob storage.
Is that one of them that you can't? And so basically, if that was the case and you were using blob storage and it couldn't be transferred, then that's the only bit you have to rewrite. Everything else stays exactly the same, and because again, there's all the C# code is valid C# code. It will do the exact same thing. It gets the exact same object. Now, when you talk about architecture, a lot of things in the framework days were architected slightly differently, and that's one of the things that Sedlick sort of worked out on his streams. And he's currently, I think, the rest of this week, Saturday, Sunday, he's going to be doing his bot dev. I think on the next week he's going to be transferring back to his game dev for a little bit. So by all means, check him out, and you can ask him questions about how he did it for him and how it worked for him, because he's just done that. Literally fresh in his mind over the past 3 weeks. He's just done that.
Yeah, I was so with the method that you said you were doing. When I was looking up, I was just watching like a .NET Conf video from.
Mhm.
Well, I'm waiting on Thindle's video because he said he kind of discusses this.
Right.
But they essentially were talking about not necessarily the upgrade assistant, but this other. I guess it's integrated with the upgrade assistant now, where
There's an Amazon one and there's the upgrade assistant. There's two of them. I'm aware of. Is there another
this one? So this is like still within .NET, like Visual Studio.
Okay.
And essentially, and I don't know what a YARP proxy is just yet, but essentially it sounds like it does the same thing that you were talking about, like the things that are upgraded, the things that are now in core will run through core, and if it says, oh, like this isn't in core, this is still framework, like it automatically
Forwards
uses
the
the
request,
frame.
essentially.
Yeah. Now
okay,
that's like a very
So that's a reverse
basic
proxy.
understanding.
Yep.
Right. So that I guess that is another valid methodology. So what that's suggesting is the HTTP request comes in, and then that gets routed to which one's going to handle that. I think it's doing it. Yeah, GPRC traffic. That's another valid way. For our example, we had the communication was on the same machine. There was just a Windows machine that had both running, and that rather than responding to the HTTP requests, because the WinForms one, I guess, didn't have HTTP requests, and obviously the modification to Blazor and then Angular did have HTTP requests. So the requests coming in all went to the new one, and then we worked out from there which stuff is still in the old and send a message across the socket connection. So we handle it internally on the computer. Now, obviously, socket connection is a network thing. You can do that. Like, if they were running on different machines, you could still do that. But we were just using socket connection as a good proxy for communication between two C# programs on the same machine.
Right.
gRPC is a great one. I do love it.
Next week I'm actually going to talk to him about, like, I need to take some sort of like charge in getting us organized in a way where, like, because right now, like, we spend 2 hours working together essentially, not using this time to say, hey, like, what do we need to do? Here are questions. Let's talk about this thing, and then, like, after this meeting, until our next meeting, quote unquote, like, or until the next day, like, I feel like we shouldn't be like trying to do things in a meeting. We should be saying, hey, like, I tried this didn't work, or like, is what I did correct? And then, like, outside of that meeting, like, actually do work. But like right now it's 2 hours of like working together, but like, because there isn't always an agreement, we're moving pictures around on a whiteboard essentially right now.
For sure, for sure, pair programming is really good. So maybe you can like pick a thing and pick a buddy and go at it with like some other guy. And if you can't figure it out, then you get handed over to another person or whatever. You'd like a little switcheroo. We do
Right.
that. Pair programming is a really powerful thing. But like
We
more than
are
4 in the
3
same thing,
people.
it's well, okay, well there you go. So 3 people is not, to me, that's not a meeting. That's pair programming with +1. That's pair programming +1 for me. So that's, I mean, I don't know. For me, that's fine. But
I think
can I use to
yeah.
take charge and try something? Can I give you a if you haven't, you've probably already done this, but can I give you a suggestion?
Sure.
What I would do is I would simply get a console application in .NET 6, copy pasta, all the code, all the C# code. Like if there's other stuff in there, gonna die, and then see if it builds. Like the Nugget package, do the Nugget packages exist? Do the DLLs they exist? You know, because a lot of stuff in framework is reliant on Windows.
Right.
So does that stuff still translate? And then if it builds, all you got left is like runtime problems, right? But get as much code as possible over and get it to build. That's what I would do. And then everything that's not in that category, then that's the bit that you now go back on the framework side and say, how do we mutate? How do we migrate? How do we rewrite? That section only. Because again, when we did the conversion, most of it ran like and Settlix is a great example. Is like everything in his bot ran in .NET 6. Right? It was just like minor changes in the configuration and startup to where he's like keeping his keys and stuff like that. Other than that, everything ran out the gate, and he had like a massive code project.
Right. I like. It's funny you say that because I'm like itching to just try to hit the button and see what happens, essentially, where like there's not a lot of like doing happening right now. There's a lot of like conversing, essentially discussing about things, and I'm just like, none of us have ever done this. There's a lot of things we haven't done in this. There's auth, there's handling auth on this with a spa, there's connecting all of these things via like, you know, microservices, and like I just kind of want to hit the
and I can entirely see why. Yeah, I can entirely see why you would say that, because like that when I have this rule with people, and I do this in business a lot. Is lots and lots of people love putting the cart before the horse, and so I like highlight what step 1 is, and I say I want you to focus all your attention on the first step. The step 2 is irrelevant to you, and because if you start thinking about step 2, then all of a sudden you can't do step 1 because you got a plan, blah blah blah. No, it's like, and that's why I would say I would break that down, and I would just try and run everything you currently have in .NET 6, and I wouldn't even worry about having a like, is it a WinForms application or is it what is it? Give it a little bit more information, I guess.
It's a monolithic MVC framework app.
Okay.
Just
so
like it's already kind of split apart to how we're gonna want to split it apart, you know, as far as like the
so obviously and you know, I'm no expert. I've just done this a few times. I've seen other people do it, and I talk about it, and I have a big background in IT administration, so like project planning, things like that. But I'm ignorant, so when you say MVC, is that like the UI is MVC, or is that just like an API thing?
It's
or?
a separation of concerns. That's what the word I was looking for. So it's model view controller, and I think technically it's like model view model, but like the logic's stored in one place, the views are stored in one place.
Yeah.
Like we've already have that separation.
But again, I'm just ignorant. So is the UI in MVC, or is that UI somewhere else?
The UI is in MVC.
Okay.
It's in our view pages. But like all of that, like if we can get it in core, we can move these things. And the first thing I think we would want to do is migrate the core, the domains, I guess, like migrate all of the backend stuff out and essentially separate it out. I like to say just extract it, put it in a web API, whatever we do there, and like.
Well, that's what I'm about to ask you. Separate. In fact,
yeah.
Obviously, there's MVC in .NET Core. Have you tried spinning up an MVC in .NET Core project and looked at the code, like see how like similar or dissimilar it is?
Oh, almost identical to me.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't know these. Yeah, I have no clue.
Yeah,
That's
no,
amazing,
like I
right?
think the only thing that's different is like the program.cs file.
Well,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
the,
yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
and the CS proj. So CS proj
Yeah.
uses the XML format or the
No,
SDK format, whatever this is called.
Oh.
So I was trying to show that really quick. So this is the difference between a duck. So this one is a .NET Core CS proj file, and then this one is a .NET Framework CS proj file. So it's very different. That's like one of the main things that the Upgrade Assistant can help you with, which is changing this from this version to. No, wait, I'm done.
As I say, but I'm sorry, the stream's a little bit lagged. So I'm looking, but that most
That's
looks
why
like
I have my camera
in
going
the same
in
way,
Discord,
like.
so you can see.
Oh, appreciate it.
Yep.
My bad. Yeah, no, too cool. And so that's what I was about to say. Everything that's a class file moves across. Everything that's not a class file, there's some sort of migration.
I mean,
and the CS
there's
one of
other stuff
things,
like
right?
these references here turn into
Nuggets.
references. And then like for this project here, the reason this is still .NET Framework is because of this system.drawing. There is no .NET Core system.drawing.
Yeah,
stuff.
and so we've and so one line is exactly because we ran the .NET upgrade tool on Cetlix's project, and that highlighted to him where he had like DLL or these include references, and then what those nugget packages was, and that's all we took away from that. And then from there it was copy paste code. So that's the once you've got that CS project, and that's what I'm saying. Like if it looks very the same, you should be able to copy over the code. And Visual Studio is relatively intelligent. Like if it needs something, it will tell you the nugget package that it needs. Especially if it's just if you're not integrated with some custom on-prem stuff. If it's just like a typical .NET app, then it should like work itself out. It'll know the SQL packages that it needs. It'll know a lot of that stuff already. So that's what I'm saying. I would just start a .NET Core, .NET MVC core project and copy over like one of your MVC, schemas, or has it broken up, but copy one of them, pick one of them, copy them over. I imagine there's overlap, but start somewhere and then just see if it builds. Because once you got it to build, that's like 90% of the work. The other 10% is just like working out what you're now dropping in terms of feature set and how you're gonna rewrite that in the newer language, which for Cetlix was like nothing. Because everything he had to run on, he still has to run on Windows. He has Windows only stuff, right? One of the things you do in .NET Core is move away from Windows to go to Linux or whatever else. He can't do that because a lot of his code is still reliant on the Windows OS.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yep.
Yes, sir.
There we go. Okay.
Hello,
No,
hello.
I was just trying to say unless it's a standard package, then Visual Studio has a tendency to cause some grief, especially when it's like an extension method that's off of a custom like Microsoft namespace. That's always fun, is figuring out what package has the extension method that I need in it.
But you can always go back to the visual framework and F12 and like see what the hell where this came from.
Yes, if it's already installed, I'm referring to something that you're adding to a project.
Yeah, true.
That's
Yeah, I'll
always
probably.
a bit of a struggle, at least I've run into quite a bit, is that I'll find some random extension method. I'll have to manually track down what NuGet package to install to include it.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, I'll probably. I don't know, start that next week. I'm at the point where I'm just like, I just want to build my own, continue like building out my website thing where I'm trying to like actually use these tools.
Yeah.
Rather than like.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Thinking,
Hell yeah, do that. That's how I do it,
Yeah.
by the way.
Yeah.
And that's also why I pick on Cetlix every now and again, because I'm like, Cetlix, I gotta learn this thing for work. Can you do it?
Yeah.
And then I'll know it, and then we'll do it. And then but yes, it's true. So absolutely have a side project, and then have that side project be your guinea pig. Absolutely do that. That's for me. That's the way I learn. A lot of people learn differently. There's lots of ways to learn, obviously. I like that method a lot. And it also means that what the phrase is, plan to always plan. And that's one of the things that it sounds like what's going on in your meeting is that no one planned to plan, so everyone's planning to plan whilst they're doing the planning. That's
Funny enough, I have like a few project management friends, and that's the question I've asked them recently. I'm like, hey, like I'm looking at project management, I'm looking at all these things, and it tells me how to like do project management, but it doesn't tell me how to plan out of project management, the project management, essentially, for like first setting it up. Because if you don't have it set up, then like, how do I, you know, how do I plan the plan, essentially?
This video might help you with that. I was partially watching this. I was interested in what he was talking about, but I wasn't fully into it. But one of the very first things that he talks about is, instead of going directly into creating the software architecture, is plan on how to create the software architecture. So it's exactly what Deflux just said.
Exactly, yeah.
And ironically, I want to bid everyone farewell. I am going to go away because my colleagues at work are calling me, and we have a project planning meeting. And so I'm
Yay.
going to move a bunch of stuff that's sort of in a really old system that's doing a bunch of extra stuff we don't need into a little bit of a massive refactor and rewrite as well. So I'm going to go skip away. I want to thank everybody for being here. I always enjoy these conversations. I wish I could stay longer.
Thank you for your TED Talk.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for listening, I guess, in terms of, putting up with me, because you're so kind. Okay, thank you guys. Thank you. And one more line, as always, I really do appreciate you streaming. I want to make sure that I 100%, every now and again I see you live and I can't watch. I'm like, man, I get to miss those because they are so valuable to me. So thank you so much for streaming consistently on the schedule.
Welcome.
I really do appreciate it. All right, ta-ra.
Yep. But yeah, I think, like, when I watch these videos like this, I watch them in the background while I'm doing work, so I don't fully absorb everything unless there's something that actually sticks out to me. But that was definitely one of the things where he's like, it's this one where it's like, here's how you do it, right? And then the next line is wrong. This is how you're supposed to do it. And I saw it in one of these, but I can't find it. Yeah, where do you begin? Oh, yeah. So it's pretty much the most played, or second most played thing. Oh, actually, this is where he's like, don't start in code.
Yeah. Oh.
But yeah, it's good stuff, good content, I thought. He's specifically talking to Silicon Valley engineers, because Silicon Valley, according to his talk, is all about, here's what we're presenting. It's all about, how does it look? Is it getting views? Is it getting wows? And it's like, there's this whole part of your project that you should be doing first, which is, software architecture and design. Do that first.
Yeah, and I think for right now, where a lot of the hangups are coming from is I'm adding like other business requirements into the mix. Like when we're like, if you let devs run loose alone without a project manager, they're going to develop something.
Yep.
And they're going to engineer something. And when discussing like our tooling, and like right now we're dead set on a single page application, I'm like, hey, marketing is going to need like Google indexing, and I didn't want to talk about like the front end framework we were going to use, but when we started talking about why like we have to handle auth a specific way because of our front end framework, I was like, hey, like we have to have this conversation.
Right.
If marketing needs like SEO, maybe we shouldn't use that tool.
Spa. Or use Spa that already has something in place that you don't have to spend a lot of development time trying to figure out how to get it to.
Well, see, that's so
content.
I said the words like, and our front end, our UI guy, the guy who's going to be working on the Spa specifically, he didn't like it when I said it, but I was like, I feel like spas are dying, and by that he was like, well, my point with it, however, is all of the Spa frameworks are changing to these hybrid models.
Yeah.
Where
Blazor
like Blazor
did.
just did it. React with React 18, I think, brought in server-side rendering. Like, I think we use Spa when necessary, but like what I've seen from with the frameworks, is just like use SSR. Well, like SSR's default, and then you have SPA where you need it, and I kind of like that, but like,
remember that SPA
yeah.
and SSR can live together. Blazor server is the example of that, where it's a SPA, still has server-side rendering, all of the interactions are happening on the server, but the signal R connection is the thing that's updating your DOM for you.
Now, so with Blazor, I know that's like the case with Blazor server. I haven't actually. I've just kind of spun up Blazor web apps with .NET 8. Haven't read too much about how they're working, but in terms of, are there like with WebSockets, I guess, because that's what SignalR is, correct?
Well, I mean, there are different approaches for establishing the signal R connection.
Oh,
Yes,
okay.
but WebSockets is default. And I'm not 100% on the terminology there.
Okay.
But yes.
But is there in like
signal R
IT...
WebSockets, you can go together.
Is there a concern as far as like scalability or?
Yes.
Okay.
So when you think about it, you have all of these signal R connections that are active every time someone comes to your Blazor server app. Let's just start with that, because the Blazor web app will have a mix of, depending on how you implement it, for every UI interaction that needs to be rendered. So you're dragging something around and it swaps position with something else, or maybe you actually have it moving as you're dragging it around. That goes to the server renders it, sends the signal R response instead of a full page refresh. Just that signal R response does a diff, makes the changes to the DOM, and then the change is made. Server is the one using the resources to render your changes, as opposed to Blazor WebAssembly, where you have everything happening on the client machine. So more users connected, more server process used to do UI changes, even minuscule UI changes. And then you try to add millions of users to your social media app doing Snapchat type things. I don't know.
Okay, so yeah, I think that's been my main concern, but I think I think our SPA would be. I don't know. I mean, we've had to discuss like the data model, because how is it going to be rendered, and like how are we going to have like permissions, stuff like that. If we do it a specific way, the ways that I've suggested, hey, like we can do this, and like in the future, if like we need to add things, like this is kind of like a decent scalable way. However, like we're disagreeing on whether or not we're going to go that route, because like how do we account for that in the SPA? We're trying to, so essentially I'm trying to have like her ABAC, attribute based access control.
Oh, okay. I don't think I'm familiar with it, but I can guess what it's
so
like.
like instead of roles, kind of like the way like Azure
policies.
Yeah. I think that's what ABAC is. I couldn't find an actual name for non-role based access.
So there's policy based, which is you belong to this organization and it's this time of day, or whatever rules you want to put into it. That kind of thing. As opposed to you're in this role.
I think I could pull up. So essentially, like, if we allow like a checkbox for each permission when a instructor assigns their TA like specific permissions, like every instructor may have it different. So I was like, instead of just like trying to account for the possible TA, like all the possible combinations of what they can and can't do, just give them the option to like change it themselves. And then they want to stick with like role based, and I was like, I don't want to say like no to the customer if like they want, like in the future there may be like enough users saying, hey, like we want RTA to be able to do this, so then we would have to create like a new role with different permissions. And I was just kind of like, why don't we just let them choose and set it to a default, but at the end of the day let them choose. And then I think the way, I don't know, we didn't want to, the UI guy didn't want to handle that logic on the front end, which I didn't think was going to be difficult. I still don't. I was thinking about like using like bitwise logic for the most part.
I mean, like the
but
actual
like
process
anything,
of setting it up based off of what claims is what you would have at this point, or would you have some kind of database that sends back, here's your possible rules, and then here's your user with their claims?
I just sent the link to how I picture to an example of how I pictured. If you look at like course level roles.
Okay. Before I click on that,
Yeah,
it's
go ahead.
also interesting that the video that I recommended to you, his example is, here's a college. Colleges have departments own rooms, they have teachers and sections and courses and all of this stuff. And it's just funny that his entire example kind of sounded like what the type of system that you're actually using or needing to develop, at least a very rudimentary version.
Okay. You're gonna love this picture then, maybe. Close. Or that link that I sent.
Yep. And then Dukasoft did send us a question that someone asked about maximum concurrent users, and it looked like 1 vCPU, 3.5 gigs of memory, 5,000 concurrent users, 14 gigs, 20,000 concurrent clients. So scalability, this person's talking about 10 million. Yeah. Anyway, so tell me about this picture. These pictures.
So that's essentially, at least on the user side, how I want permissions, how I've advocated for permissions to be handled. Not every professor is going to want their TA to be able to do the same things. And instead of trying to create a role for, instead of trying to even choose the top 3, I'm like, if we do it this way, like, it's just easier to scale if we ever need to add anything to it.
Oh, dude, I didn't even notice. Sorry. Let me pull someone in. Okay. So yeah, I mean,
Hello.
I kind of like this, and you're saying that this is This is kind of based on a per course thing. So a teacher is the one that is checking these boxes. You have a default set of boxes checked. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
I do like that approach.
And
But,
then
I mean, I still see it as adding them. Well, I guess it couldn't work adding them to roles because those would be application roles.
So
The answer is
this is for
yes,
the
I did.
Canvas LMS, and they have like 2 different levels. They have 2 different levels of roles. But I haven't looked into too far how they actually do it. But their code is open source, so I just need to sit down.
I have some thoughts on that, but first I wanted to say hello to IJG. How about some mic check?
Good morning.
Good morning. Is it morning?
Good morning.
It is still morning.
Isn't it morning for you guys?
Good morrow.
11:48 a.m. in Mountain Time.
How's it going? Good.
I have trouble answering questions like that. Ask me about technology and bring up your topic. Would you consider?
Why is it called C sharp?
Why is it called C
and
sharp?
not
Because
C pound?
we're wearing glasses. I don't know. What was your question? Using a stage channel instead of a waiting room.
No, it's just an idea.
I mean, that's kind of what my waiting rooms are.
True.
Stage channel.
Should call it
Like
the
I would
room.
use the stream co-star thing, Twitch co-star, but not everyone uses Twitch to stream, so I don't know how that works. Do you know how that works?
The guest star thing, the new one.
Yeah.
Yeah, the new version of that is pretty good actually. I think you just Anybody who has access, you just go to the creator dashboard, and then you can press start, and then it'll like ask you for some web sources. So you can say, okay, I want my camera and my microphone, and then the other person adds a source like from Twitch.
And they don't even need
with
to be
their
like a
OBS.
streamer. Use their Twitch
No.
TV for streaming.
Yeah, I don't know how that works, but yeah, they can just show, like, you know, we could all just be in a little meeting room there now, and just bopping around the place, kind of like, you know, your man Matisse. Matisse does a lot of kind of stuff like that, where he'll have like people's IP cams and stuff showing up randomly in his stream or in his stuff. I think they've kind of done that. Cool, yeah, it's exciting. I'm gonna try it out
Maybe
with
I'll use it.
Nerdwino in a few weeks.
Stream
Next week,
together. That's
Jason.
not it. Is it?
Yeah, because nobody was using that other thing. Well, very few people were using that other thing. And 2 people couldn't be live at the same time, but this way 2 people can be live.
Cool. So it's both co-op stream and guest star kind of thing together.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. Does it require having a camera blank spot? I hope not. Anyway,
No.
I'll probably set that up. That's a good idea. Ew, I can see
Yeah.
myself in this camera. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'll look into that. I had no problem with that. We'll try it next Friday. Next Friday night. So anything interesting that you want to discuss also?
How
Contribute?
about them Blazers?
How about
you
them
know?
Blazers?
Yeah.
There was something interesting that I saw when I was going through the .NET template projects. So the Blazor web app always has this kind of server backend. So there is no WebAssembly standalone, except if you go to that project type, and the WebAssembly standalone doesn't even have the option to add identity at all. So you can't even use the original identity server template that they had. You got to roll your own, apparently.
That's
Very
cool.
interesting.
I'm half tempted to ask, but I don't want this to be our last 30 minutes. As far as
42.
identity and identity management, if you're rolling it through Active Directory or any auth provider, could you handle roles there too? I know you can.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
But,
I'm using
yeah.
database currently in this hello alt tab in this project. And so the way that it works in a traditional Blazor WebAssembly project is you would normally have a server-side rendered login page, which is essentially what the other thing is doing. Is server rendered pages here. And so this would be the thing that allows you to choose either like your MSAL or your other identity source. But for a Blazor WebAssembly app, after it does the login, it does the redirect to the OAuth 3-legged handshake thing, and then eventually it goes back to the client and it says, here is your auth token, bearer auth token. And then in that bearer auth token, you have the claims, and then those claims would need to be parsed on the client side. So that looks like add HTTP message handler. No, add claims principal factory. This one here. And so this is the thing that will get the roles from the claims and make it available to the app to be able to use.
Okay.
Where is the other thing that I'm looking for? Oh, it's on the server. It's in the computer. It's on the server. Here. You would need to add support on the server for your identity stuff. I have this in many places. Configure identity services. So in Blazor WebAssembly, add API authorization and add, oh, here it is, add roles. So that's the line that I need. I think this is where you can also add policy. You do policies in here too. I don't know how, because I've never used policies. But yeah, so you add roles, and it doesn't matter what kind of identity provider you have as long as it gives you something back that you can parse roles out of.
Okay. Interesting.
And then when you do that, you can use, for example, on my index page in the UI. I'm so blind. Index. Authorize roles equals, so the same authorization attribute that you're used to seeing when you're doing RBAC role-based. But this can also handle policies.
Okay. The one thing I've done and what I'm going to use as my learning is with my like personal project, I set up everything in Docker containers, Postgres database, front end or Blazor app, and then
Sure.
web API. And I'm trying to like I set it up with auth and connected to the Postgres database, and I'm just going to try to build from here and see what I can learn, but also just get done as far as coming back to the meeting next week to say, hey, like this is how I did it. I may spin up like a self-hosted identity provider if there's one for a Docker app. That way I just don't have to worry about paying anything or figuring out auth.
Like the main concern is if they're planning on going to client side, web functionality, like in a SPA or in a WASM app, then you're not actually keeping sessions or state in any way, shape, or form. So the only thing that you have is an auth token, and for every request, you're providing that auth token to say, this is who I am, supposedly, allegedly. And then the server's like, okay, let me validate your auth token, make sure that it was given to you by our identity server, and that you have the permissions to access whatever resource you're trying to get to. When you're doing server side, it's so much easier because you're establishing a session, you get that session in a cookie, you're passing that cookie around, you have that anti-forgery token to make sure the request is coming from the client that it's supposed to be. And that's already got your identity and everything as part of it. So it's a lot easier to maintain. There's that constant, I know who you are, I've maintained state for our session kind of thing.
Yeah, I'll see what I can learn with the spa conversation. I'm just like, again, it just sounds like we're holding up a lot, or we're not building the ideal platform from a UX perspective due to not wanting to to handle things certain ways, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like you weren't able to.
Yeah.
So, and that's why you see here I have this switch in my services. So this app, of course, as all of my apps are, is configured to work in both Blazor Server or Blazor WebAssembly. You decide when you're building and publishing. You can't do it at runtime because I didn't know how to set that up. This was 2018-ish when Blazor was first coming out. So this is the approach that I decided to go with. But now, it's a very different paradigm where I'm not 100% sure how they have it set up. All that I know is regardless of whether you go with web app that uses WASM only or web app that uses a mix of WASM and server, it's still going to create a hosted backend. And then for server, that backend is the application itself, including the UI rendering. For WASM, it's just the hosted API, or the equivalent of the hosted API. But
Would
there's
you
no
say
other way to
WASM
do
app's
auth.
like a little bit easier? Because I had another like project that I
For
kind of wanted
auth?
to. I guess technically it would be included at some point. I had another like project I was thinking about that where I consumed like an API from like a game I play. There's like a lot for like League of Legends, but like the one that I don't know, I just wanted something that had a build calculator with it that was like live for during a game.
Yeah.
And that one, like while it could be a web app, it could also just be like a standalone app. But as far as just like developing out a project, I guess it depends on what it does. Yeah, it's one of
like
those
answering yourself.
Yeah, I know it's the answer's always been it
I guess
depends.
it depends.
And it will
Yeah,
always
and
be,
here
it depends.
my thought on what the it depends on, because for me, I believe that WebAssembly and Blazor Server are going to be equally difficult or easy, however you want to put it, to develop. Because my recommendation is you're building your Blazor UI itself in its own class library, and the only thing you're concerned about is, can I put together UI that looks good when it's presented, regardless of how it's which hosting model you're using to present it. So the it depends part is, does your application require a backend? Like if the only thing that your application is going to do is communicate with external APIs that you don't control, Blazor WASM is a good choice, because that's just a HTTP client that's doing API requests to something that's not your backend. You could use Blazor Server and also still do API requests from the server out, or even from the client only. But then your server is the thing, like we said before, that's rendering your UI, doing all of your user interaction stuff, and processing all of that interactivity on the server. So yeah, but if you have your own database that you are maybe copying data over from the API requests, or putting data into so that your API requests to the League of Legends server or whatever it is,
Right.
will need, and you're updating your own data on the back end to manipulate those requests.
Did you?
Yeah.
So, going back a little bit, were you saying the WebAssembly standalone app did not have an auth option?
That is correct.
But
I mean, maybe that's
in Writer,
normal.
mine does.
Oh, awesome! what can you create a new Blazor WebAssembly.NET 8 with?
Are you on RC1 or 2?
Good question.
I wonder if it's an RC2 thing, because I know I just upgraded to RC2, or I just installed RC2.
I don't know.
Now I'm trying to do this in Visual Studio. Blazor WebAssembly standalone app.
Hello? Visual Studio install.
Next. Auth is here in Visual Studio as well. Try RC2.
Visual Studio Enterprise.
I'm in
Community. I am preview 4. So yes, I do need to update. That's one thing. I am 2 preview versions behind. Man, I really want to know what that looks like then. Because if they aren't using Identity Server, how are they doing?
Oh, you may have to direct me where to look here, but
it looks like they have a login portion. So under pages, I think it was either under pages or shared, there's an identity folder.
Okay. And then there's also a PWA option. I'm gonna share the picture in
Sounds
VC
good.
text
Very interested in this.
or
Yeah, it could have been in this channel's chat, but that's fine. VC text works.
there's
Yeah, it's it's something that gets overlooked quite a bit, that the voice channels now have their own chat.
alright, so there's components, properties, program.
Okay, so yes, include sample pages, individual accounts. Yes, I want to see that. I wonder how long it would take to update.
Then if I go to login, all right, hold on. I'm looking for
Builder.services.add OIDC authentication. It uses OpenAuth directly. That's cool. But it's like the only thing that a Blazor WASM app would allow you to do is implicit flow, like WASM only, because you wouldn't have a way to authenticate your application using a client secret.
I'm just trying to figure out where it would be in the app itself.
Yeah.
Like
So again, there should be like a shared folder with an identity folder inside of it, or maybe pages with identity. And one of them, like the place that I would start is the login page.
pages
Actually,
with
program.cs.
authentication. Program.cs has
builder.services.add OIDC.
add OIDC. Yeah.
So it says Duca.
Oh, and then they have a link in here.
Cool.
Blazor standalone auth. You may have to
Cool.
upgrade.
Yes, I'm doing that now. Can you post the link?
Yes. My control clicking was not working, but in Twitch I am. Ooh,
Man.
this isn't the latest
Why
version
does
of
that
the
say
article.
3.1? That was weird. 8. There we go. This information relates to pre-release product. Client side spa security. First, do you use the word implicit? I do. Implicit grant isn't supported. It's PKCE. Oh, I've never actually used or been able to see it. But PKCE is what my client wants to use, wants to move to.
Oh, so on our end, I think that's what we're going with since we're using a spa.
Guys,
the little I know about.
I know nothing about this, and I want to learn more about it. So I know the next videos I'll be watching.
I know I have the link for the PKCE flow, but I'm gonna share that link here in a second.
authzn.
Oh yeah, you're pulling up the link, the same link. And then if you scroll down, there's a picture. That helps.
Yes, pictures help me more. I mean, I still want to read it, but pictures do help me. So I'm definitely used to seeing these. Typically what you would see for the secure authentication stuff is user clicks login on the login page, goes to the app. The app does the authentication part and then sends the auth code to your backend, if this is yours, to your backend, or the API backend. Backend has a redirect URL back to your app that says, okay, they've authenticated, here is your authorization code. And then the app combines the authorization code with the client secret, sends it back and says, okay, now give me the authorization token. And then it gives it the authorization token, sends it all the way back to your client application.
Yeah, and I think that link right above the picture, that link has that picture.
Oh yeah. So here it is. Client clicks login, asks for authorization code. The hosted API that you're trying to authenticate to says, all right, you are authenticated. redirect it back to the login page. So this doesn't necessarily go back to the user. This sometimes goes to your own hosted API backend, like an OAuth/authorize endpoint. And then that authorize endpoint is the one that says, okay, here's my client secret. Give me an author. Wait, why is this authorization code? Oh, this is not the sign-in link. This is the sign-in link. Sorry, this is the I want to sign in button.
Yeah,
click.
that one.
And then it takes you to the sign-in page.
I've seen it. This like everything that I've seen has this whole like first the user clicks, and I'm not gonna lie, it's
Right.
confused me a bit.
Well, it's because the sign-in page itself should be server rendered. So let's say that you have a third-party authorization. So you're using Google to sign in, for example. That's what's providing the UI for the user. But it could also be your own application that's providing a server-side rendered UI to log in. So here it might be MSAL for you if you're using Active Directory. Anyway, they click the sign in button after providing their credentials, goes to the authorization server with a redirect back to your backend, and that backend takes the authorization code with the client ID and the client secret, says give me an auth token. It says, are you valid? Are you good? If so, here's your ID and access token. What's this extra step? Request user data? I mean, I guess. I guess this is to get maybe roles and claims, other claims. But I thought
As
that's
opposed
what this access
to-
token had.
Oh. Okay. I was gonna say as opposed to what? Because
As opposed to just sending the auth or the auth token, access token, whatever they're calling it, back to the client, and the client stores that in a cookie and in wherever it stores it.
okay.
And then with each request in the header, you have authorization bearer. Here's my jot, and then it parses your credentials and stuff. So like our app is a desktop app, for example, and we do this authentication process. Let's say we actually had a backend for our app, which we don't because craziness. So anyway, then we get the authorization code, or the keep wanting to call it authorization token, but I think that's what it's called. Here they call it access
It
token.
is. So
They give us the access
ID
token.
token and access. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So they give us that. And then that goes back to our desktop app. And then from there, if the user clicks on profile, then we say, all right, go to the API / whatever the endpoint is to get their user information, and then display their entered name, entered email address, whatever contact information they wanted to put in. But that's from our
Okay.
app. That's not from the backend server that
So
does that.
what is it? Or are you familiar? I'm not familiar. I've heard of. It's been explained to me, but I never did pre-OAuth 2, so I don't know. What is it about OAuth 2? I guess why do we have a 2.0, quote unquote?
I have no idea.
Okay. My
I wish I knew.
senior dev explained something about both like authentication and authorization were being handled on the same token for a minute, or people were like handling that at the same time, and essentially what he said, like I don't fully understand it, or
No,
understand
that's
how
fine.
it
I
used
don't
to be
either.
done.
Yeah.
But yeah, so everybody take this with a grain of salt. Essentially, like OAuth 2 said, hey, like no, we don't do it this way. We handle authentication, then we handle authorization separately. I could be wrong. I could be like half right. That's what live coding was supposed to be here for.
Supposed to be here. I like that. Anyway, now that I've half typed that to Scott, we were talking about this video that had information about thinking like a systems architect. and one of the things was using UML diagrams and knowing flow
UML
and stuff like
diagram.
that. But
Mermaid JS.
RMA.js, what?
Mermaid JS
Mermaid.
is you can write out, you can type out, and then it displays UML diagram.
Oh, cool. So yeah, so I mean, it's probably true what you said, that both the authentication, and authorization were being handled on the same token. Is that what you said? I think token, maybe.
I don't want to be that specific. It was basically
But they're still
like
being
they were
handled together as
together.
opposed
Yeah.
to splitting them up into, and that's what this looks like now that you say that. This is giving us, yeah, you're authenticated. Here's your ID token and access token. Now go get your authorization stuff. Here are your credentials. Here's what claims you can have. Maybe.
Okay.
The game of Overwatch. Can't save anyone right now. Save your teammates. Or wait, is Overwatch only Battleground? Winner takes all. Survival. I don't know how that works. I don't play FIPS. But yeah, so the PKE version, PKCE version, gives us the same login page. We get a code verifier. Oh, so this is more like if you're going to use an authenticator app or email authentication, or maybe you get a link to your email that says use this link to sign in. I think, maybe, as opposed to getting UI to type in your credentials.
Okay. Yeah,
But this doesn't go back to the
ahead.
user. That's what's weird. There's nothing that gets presented to the user in this.
The verified code challenge may actually be like simply explained a little bit below.
Oh, yeah. Gotta read that.
so then on the bottom right, or not the bottom
Okay.
right, but like in the third column of that picture,
Okay.
is that step number 8? Question mark.
Oh, okay. So this is
yeah,
generate the. Oh my gosh, I can read. Generate the code verifier and code challenge, and then send that with the code challenge to /authorize. So this is your client ID sent to the /give me an authorization code endpoint. Got it. Like implicit flow, you still have this, but now you also have a code challenge. Oh,
yeah.
cool.
You know, I'm actually gonna. So Auth has a live lab for this.
Oh.
Where you can play around with it. Now you have to like set up. I'm gonna go through it, and maybe next week I'll know it better. Because they essentially say, hey, like, try to do an API call, try to do this. Don't remember where I came across it. I don't remember how I got to it. But yeah, so we'll figure it out. We'll have a answer next week.
Yeah. That's
Because a lot of the things that
yeah,
I've seen with like
this looks easy.
a lot of the things that I've seen with auth when I'm trying to look it up, like everything just talks about using your Google login, and I'm like, no. Like I'm not trying to use a Google login.
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out how I like conform essentially to like this method, because now then I'd be able to use, SSO from our platform into others. I'm not trying to get SSO into it. I'm trying to get SSO out of it, I guess.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, and that's definitely doable. That's really cool. Well, wait. I'm starting to coalesce some thoughts. So SSO with this type of authentication doesn't depend on the authentication type. SSO depends on whether you have authenticated in the browser before at that endpoint, and that endpoint will allow other apps to authenticate or to use the existing authentication. Yeah. right?
I'm listening.
So another example, the desktop application that we have, we are just now integrating the main identity system for the company, for the client. And they have many apps. One of them is their support page, for example. You can log into their support page. If you are already logged into their support page and then you use another app that uses the same authentication system, that app still has to provide its own authorization code. But if the session exists, it automatically says, all right, they've already authenticated. Here's your authorization code. And then do the rest of the three-way handshake. So
these are technically different
concerns is what I would call them. So the authentication method itself, I could do that with implicit flow. I could do that with PKCE when they turn that on. I could do that with whatever the thing is that you were describing where you use a third-party login to do it. Those kinds of things. But it's the functionality in the app that recognizes I'll accept any request from any app that is approved to do authentication request at this endpoint.
But with the project
regardless
that
of
you
how
were
you do it.
talking about, it's essentially so the user doesn't know that you'll have to like re-auth or reconfirm
Right.
between like their docs and was that like this was added in later and we set it up this way on purpose, or I guess like why is it a separate access token question mark?
Because each app would have its own client ID and client secret that identifies that app as itself. And so if you aren't one of those apps that are registered to be able to use authentication and authorization, then you don't get an authorization code. It would be nice if, like, you know, we had a nice world where people weren't trying to abuse other people or take advantage of other people. And we could say, hey, I'm part of this family of products. We've already authenticated, so just give me the existing authorization code from this other product.
Okay.
So, yeah. Especially with our app being a desktop app and then most of the other apps being web apps.
So when you go from one
Ask.
like when you go from one to the other, like what call, like somebody's using your desktop app, they click on something,
like open a support ticket.
Yeah. On the server, like if we were to draw arrows, when that request is made, what's happening on the auth side? Is it
Okay, so for our specific situation, the only thing that we need the authenticated user with, actually they don't even get any authorization stuff. The only endpoint that we get is who am I? Can I get my profile information? With that, we can get their ID that's used globally across all of the apps, and then we can ask other APIs, give me some warranty information for the ID, for this ID. We ask another app, give me what devices they have registered. And then we say, create a new support ticket. The only thing that that button will do is open the browser to the new support ticket page. If they're still logged in, then they can just fill out the form with all of their existing logins. So there's no communication of auth token to the browser in that case. It's just if the browser...
There's no... Okay. But is there
was already
an instance where they open something in the browser where authorization has to be checked? Or does it have to be checked every time they try to do a command, I guess?
Ask that one more time. Sorry. Maybe?
When they click on buttons to perform a task that requires calling an API,
yes,
where is their authorization being checked?
Okay. So the login state is carried in the app based off of, is the authentication token provided in, like, this is the approach that I decided to take. For now, it's probably wrong. Is there an authorization token in the header, the authorization header item? And then is that authorization token still valid? If not, do we have a refresh token that we can get a new authorization token? If so, do the refresh process. Did we get a valid one? That kind of stuff. So that flow that says, are they still logged in? So for the app, it's on their computer, in their computer, one of them, for their computer. We've already done the authorization process. So the app is like, all right, their login state is based off of those rules. If they are logged in, this button is available. If they're not logged in, they don't have that button available.
Okay.
And then again, the button is, you click it, we do process.start, cmd /c URL opens in their default browser. And then if the browser is still logged in, they can use it. If not, they have to log in first, because the endpoint itself, that's now the web app's responsibility to say, are you authenticated? If you are, here's the form.
Okay.
If not, sign in.
One thing I'm still trying to figure out, I guess, is like where, so like this is how authentication is handled. However, what I don't fully understand, or I mean all of it I don't fully understand, but the thing I don't understand the most is like, this is a method we've decided on. What happens when this method, why is this method, like how were these things being mishandled?
In the past or in the existing?
Yeah, like there's a security concern. How was this being, why, like what made this become a security concern? What were people doing?
Yeah, the main concept, if you're using this auth process the normal way for web applications, maybe it's a client-side web application that talks to any number of APIs. That application has a whole bunch of authorized attributes, and that authorized attribute is the thing that validates the token that's stored in the cookie. And then it says, do you have that permission as the user that you're logged in as? When you're doing requests to any API, you're providing that token as part of the header. It's that API's responsibility to say you have authorization to access this resource. So it most likely has, if it's a .NET application, authorization attributes as well. So if you're trying to identify if something is being abused, the only thing that you can really see is this authorization token being used from multiple places? That's a big one. Or different IP addresses. Are there two requests that are pretty much identical happening in succession? So a repeat attack kind of thing.
Okay.
Yeah. So authorization tokens should also help. They kind of make it a little bit easier for someone else to, if they can get access to your authorization token, even if you've like left your machine and they just copy and paste it really quick somehow, then suddenly they have your authorization token and they can do postman requests to whatever endpoint.
Okay.
Using your authorization token. So we have, we use the state field. So there's a state query parameter that you could, if you wanted to, provide. We initially put that in to the request to the endpoint, and then the endpoint gives us back whatever it gives us, and then part of the body response is the state. And then we match that state to the state that we sent, and then from then on, if it's post request, we put state as part of the payload. Or we could put state in the header.
Okay. Interesting. I may try this. Let me try the WebAssembly standalone.
There is one more concept. It's called nonce. Number used only once. Which is typically, like, if you've ever seen it in an API, nonce equals, and then you would typically use something like datetime.now.ticks, something, or utcnow.ticks, something that is constantly counting up. This request can only be hit once when this is in there.
Okay.
And so you say, I want this to happen only once. If someone else tries to use the same replay of this, the second one will fail.
Okay. Now with this, last question. It's,
Absolutely.
well, do you have to go? It's 2:30.
I do, but this question.
So with authentication, how much of it is something where you need to know exactly how things are working versus you can follow Microsoft's documentation where you can trust, like, oh, use ASP.NET Identity or use the documentation without necessarily like knowing what's happening at each step.
As full stack developers, we really should understand how whatever authentication method we use works.
Okay.
But like, I have gotten away, and I'll tell you the danger in this one specifically. I've gotten away with just using the Microsoft template for doing my identity server authentication and authorization. They gave it to me for free in my .NET 3.1 template when I first created the apps. And I used it, and I kept it when I upgraded to .NET 5, kept it when I went to .NET 6 and Identity Server 6. And we were small enough that we weren't affected by the license. However, I didn't know about the license change until like a year after it had happened. And we were in danger of not being able to use Identity Server because their license model changed.
Okay. Ooh.
So knowing how it's set up in the project and what approach they're using is important for at least that reason.
Okay. Well,
And
then
yes,
I know what I'm
OpenID
doing
Connect
this week.
Playground. Yeah. There's a good video by Identities by Duende. And I personally don't like the whole model change. You can advocate for it. You can say it makes sense because they still have to maintain this repo, and they were doing it for free, and it's man hours and blah 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 blah. But in the end, it's just they wanted to make money off of it, which again, they admitted to just that. But they do talk about the way that they changed their spec to to OAuth, and specifically we're discussing. Oh man, I wish I could find. It was a NDC conference that the dude was talking at, but he clearly explained how OAuth works, and that was the point of it, and that's why I really love this video. It's not this is how Identity Server works, it's just this is how you can understand OAuth.
Okay.
But if I find that, I'll put it in resources in the Discord channel. Is it you? It looks familiar. Might have been this one. Yes, this is the one, I believe. I think I just found it. So I'll put it in chat. But then Dukasoft also posted the OpenID Connect Playground. Thank you so much. I mean, was that you? You just posted the OpenID. My bad. But yeah,
oh yeah,
good
no, I put
conversation.
so that was a learning lab thing.
Awesome.
I think. But yeah, no, I'll let you get back to your things. I gotta get
First,
back
do
to
your
my
stand-up.
things. My stand-up is everybody stay safe out there. Know how authentication works. We recently we have like 2 dev environments. In one of them, we switched the database over, and this is probably where like all of this authentication comes in. We switched the database over. Everybody, like, user IDs changed, but when that database was switched over, my login was now a different user. Luckily, it was just a dev database, but I feel like that shouldn't be happening.
Yeah. That wouldn't be massive leakage issue. Anyway, Good.
Yeah, so
Any
there's a
blockers?
reason why it's important. Just the lack of knowing, really. So working on that one.
Cool. And to resolve by research, doing POC. Can we expect a POC for the next meeting?
What does that mean?
You said you were gonna try creating a new
Oh,
app.
POC. Oh,
Yeah, POC.
yes. Well, no, what is a POC? Sorry.
Oh, proof of concept.
Okay. Sure. Yeah. I'll try to have an MVP.
For me, it's point of contact, but whatever.
For
Everyone
me,
else
it's
says
person of
proof
color,
concept.
so.
Oh.
I was like, I mean, I am.
Me.
Yeah. I mean, I'm gonna be working on it this weekend, so I might have a little something.
Cool. Well, thank you again for the fantastic conversation. Any last words?
Oh no, those were my last words. I kind of do it all
Okay.
at once.
Cool.
My bad. Thank you.
No worries. No worries. Yep. Thank you. Where is my button? I need to push this button. All right. And thank you to the rest of you for being here. Thank you for hanging out with us. You were enjoying Mojo. Earlier, D-Flex was on. We saw Napalm come in for a half second, and then he went to play games, which is awesome. We saw IJG for a half second. He's going to be streaming later, so catch him in about hour and 30 minutes. Reminder, thank you for the reminder, Irish John. So I believe Europe has already done daylight savings, fall back. The US will be doing it next week, so my stream will seem like it starts an hour later than it has been. So, yeah. Just so you know, it'll feel like I'm starting an hour later for those of you who don't observe daylight savings or who have already. It should have felt like my stream started an hour earlier. Whatever, it'll be back on schedule. You guys will. Yeah, so hard to think about. Who is streaming currently? We have Bardaki, we have Code Red Games, we have Big Gamey. Man, everyone. We have all of the amazing peoples. Get Blamey? Get Gamey? Any preferences on who we raid? We got Solo Solipsist, who we raided last week. Daki, Timbo Day. Many, many amazing people. I mean, it's easy for me to raid the same people, especially the people that I just love their content. Personally love their content. Raid One Lion. Cool. So Mojo is like, Solo Solipsis is cool. I love raiding Solo Solipsis because he's working in the technology that I absolutely want to be in. Like very soon. I already want to start developing in mixed reality. So let's head on over there. Still looks like he's playing with his scarecrow. I hadn't actually been lurking on his stream this whole time because it's way over there and I didn't realize that we're gonna raid Solo Solipsist, who is working with mixed reality technology. Did I type it correctly? I typed it into the wrong chat. Let's try typing it here. Raid live coding. Wait, I was gonna say, wait, is he actually streaming? Okay. Yes, that is him. All right, so I started the raid. If you are so inclined, feel free to stick with us as we head on over to his channel. We'll hang out with him. We'll watch some amazing mixed reality content. Mixed reality dev content. It's really cool stuff. Really, really cool stuff. But I'll be lurking on everyone's stream. Irish John's when he starts, solos. All of it. All of it. All right, that's it for me for now, though. I'll be back on Monday, 10:30 a.m. Mountain Standard Time, UTC -7. I need to update that. But until then, feel free to check out this video if you missed it, either the VOD on Twitch or I'll be posting it to YouTube so no sooner than 24 hours after the stream. If you ever feel like joining a community day, hop into our Discord, or if you just feel like hanging out with a bunch of really, really cool people, feel free to join our Discord. All right. Ciao for now. I'm looking way over there, and I mean to look at the camera.